Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Cover One Buffalo. As always, it's myself, Aaron Quinn, and the one, the only, the real star of the show, Nate Geary. How you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Dude, I'm living the dream. Bills Embedded Part 2. What was it? The
watch that
Standard
tonight.
Was on tonight.
The defense. You got a real nice look at the defense tonight.
Yeah, dude, I'm all jazzed up. The marketing works on me. I take it every time.
Doesn't it?
Oh, my God. Gets me every
Hook,
time.
line, and sinker.
I agreed to go to the home opener after the last one. I had a guy offering me tickets right after the last one. I texted him like, "You still got that ticket?" Like, I bite on that stuff so easy. I'm just a chump for it.
You are their like who they advertise to. Like you're the subject group. You're the test sample.
I am exactly their target market. Absolutely,
you're their niche market.
That's right. Millennial, that middle, that 35 area. They love that.
They love that. Yeah.
But if you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, definitely head over to Facebook and watch that. There's 15, 17-minute clips. If you haven't watched it yet, great stuff. ESPN highlighted the McDermott speech, talking about talent habits wins, and that's what he wants. And
when Louis Riddick says good things about the Bills, I listen because I like Louis Riddick a lot.
Yeah, me too. So great stuff. Great time to be a Bills fan, I think. Even though on Twitter they get killed a lot, I saw a lot of them getting killed today, but great time to be a Bills fan. Watch that stuff. We got a bunch to talk about tonight. We're running a little bit late here. That's my fault. Before we get into all the stuff we want to talk about here in this big third week of preseason, the biggest week of the preseason, before we get into that, I just want to remind you guys, Cover One is the premier spot for the casual fan and diehard film grinder looking for wrinkles in various schemes. With new articles popping up every day, ranging from commentary to analysis to full film breakdowns. Every day we're dropping new stuff. We got a great team of writers, including the man you're looking at over there, Nate Geary, Rob Quinn, Fernando, Jaden, Anthony. All those guys are just pumping out the content right now. So get over to cover1.net. We got you covered over here. You're right here with us on YouTube. Over on the YouTube channel, we got about 650 videos uploaded. Some of them are just the podcast. Some of them are us talking. Some of them are Nate and Eric breaking down film, doing that kind of stuff. Eric's got some great stuff from this preseason, breaking down individual plays, stuff that you just can't get anywhere else. You're only going to get it through Cover One. So get over, follow all of our stuff. And right now, that's all the free stuff, right? But right now, for a limited time, it's going to end here soon in the next, I think, week and a half. We're doing $10 for the entire year. It gets you access to the premium content. That's the premium access, premium content, Slack channel, video library, all the stuff that you get for premium. $10. You can't beat it. And then we'll talk a little bit more at the end about some of the other stuff, our app and all that, because I want to get into this conversation here, man. We're going to get to Josh Allen. I know that's what everybody wants to talk about is quarterback. You and I have talked about
it. Forever.
We talk about it a lot here. But before we get there, Bills make a roster move this week. They signed John Ryan, 13-year vet, 36-year-old kicker. Schmidt had a couple of bad kicks the other day. Carter goes down. Didn't know much about Carter. Is this just Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott living up to their word and saying, hey, we're going to always look to make positions better? Or are they really putting Colton Schmidt on blast?
I'm pissed about Corey Carter. I thought he was having a great camp up until the injury happened.
Yeah.
I thought that he had a legitimate shot to outseed Colton Schmidt. He hasn't had a good camp. He had a good year last year, though. And you got to kind of remember that last season, he did have a pretty good year, but he has not really had a good training camp, and he really hasn't had a great preseason. John Ryan just basically got cut for a young player out in Seattle, but supposedly is a stud. A guy I think they spent a draft pick on, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Was it? I think they did. I think is that the kid from Bama that they have out over there?
I can't remember. I know he asked for his release, but I think it was because the writing
on the wall. Yeah. And basically with a lot of the stuff that I had seen is his hang time was significant, almost a full second better than John Ryan's at this point of his career. But he's got the rapport with Stephen Hauschka. So it's very possible that he could give him a push. I would think it would take a lot at this point to get Colton Schmidt off the roster. But if you keep struggling and John Ryan could come in and be a little bit more consistent, that's what they're honestly, that's what they're looking for. And you know that they're really just kind of like looking for consistency at every position. So that's why they're definitely taking a look.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get on Bean and McDermott especially for his coach speak, but even Bean during the whole draft process, they, for just giving vanilla answers to stuff and generic answers. But I don't think those generic answers are not true.
Right.
Bean gets up there and says, we're going to look at the every guy that's out there. We're going to look at guys that are falling off rosters. And if we have a chance to make this team better or create some competition and we can bring a guy in, that's what we're going to do. And I think that is all this is. They saw an opportunity, obviously Stephen Hauschka being here, having some familiarity with him probably helps. They probably asked Stephen, what do you think of this guy? He said, you should definitely bring him in. Great guy. Boom. Deal. We'll add some competition. We lost a guy. Let's bring in some more competition. I tend to agree with you. I don't know that Colton Schmidt's on his way out just because of this signing. I think it's very much a competition. And I agree.
Right.
I thought Colton Schmidt had a pretty good year last year.
Yeah.
When they were talking, there was conversations about bringing in King when he got released.
Year. He's the best punter in the league. If you get an opportunity to bring him in, you bring him in.
Sure, but at the same time, I thought good enough was good enough, right? Sure, if you can bring him in, but I don't want to pay top money. I don't want to have the highest paid punter.
Correct, and nobody does.
Yeah, so and I don't care that much about punter. So we've already spent a good amount of time. I think it's a cool competition that we get to watch the last two games here and see how it shakes out. I'm really ambivalent either way. I don't have my heart set on Schmidt or Ryan.
Yeah. And, the offense is going to be so good, they won't be punting anyway. So.
My thing, I said it the other day, why don't we just, on fourth down, let Josh Allen go out there and throw that sucker 70 yards and see what happens?
Honestly, he could throw it probably further and higher than anyone can punt it. So.
Maybe we come down.
Like you're back to street rules,
Dude, I'm all for it. Let's try it. Did you get a chance to watch the embedded too?
I did.
What'd you take away from that, man?
There was and people that were talking about the differences between that and Hard Knocks. They show just most of the positive side of stuff. I would like to see a little bit of who they're being critical about, because they were doing a lot of the player evaluations. But Eddie Yarbrough always just seems like a guy that is talked about constantly with that coaching staff because of how he works and how he just seemingly makes plays. Every day in practice, every day during training camp, and then it translates to the game. And I think that's really like the big thing with them is their habits in practice and everything they do at practice translates over onto the game field. And he's sort of living proof of that. And I think the other thing that stood out to me too is just how important Kyle Williams is to this team, even if he doesn't play. I just think he's so important to how they practice, how he holds other players accountable. He's one of the most important players in the team, and he isn't really going to have that big of an impact on the field. So it kind of goes to show you that's the reason they wanted him back this year. It wasn't because he was going to come back here and have 80 tackles and have, 10 TFLs and 3 or 4 sacks and be an every down defensive tackle at this point in his career. That's not why he's here. And even the coaches were saying, like when he was out of practice, when he wasn't in pads, there was a noticeable drop in intensity and focus during practice. And then when he's out there, he's very vocal. The young guys, they sort of feed off that.
Yeah. And he's the type of guy that even though he's injured right now, he's not going to not be around, right? Like some guys get injured and you spend their time rehabbing. They don't get out there. Kyle's going to be there. He's still going to be in all the meetings, doing all the things, leading these young guys to do their job right because he cares. Right. And so I tend to agree with you.
Fault. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Kyle's the player he was 5 years ago, and that's okay. I think sometimes you take a little bit of a drop off for that leadership ability. I'm a little bummed though that Starr didn't get more of a mention in the show, and that they don't talk about him in that same way as that vet. He was talked about that when they brought him in, of a guy that can set that standard that they talk about. So I would have liked to seen that. And kind of to your point about Eddie Yarbrough, one thing that stood out to me is, one, they didn't mention Shaq Lawson. So that tells me maybe they didn't have negative things to say about him, but they didn't have raving positive things to say about him, or they would have mentioned him. And 2, that scene with Jerry Hughes and Eddie Yarbrough working on moves. Man, I don't know if he's going out there and doing it, but Shaq Lawson better be out there working with Jerry Hughes every single night after practice, because the one thing I haven't seen from Shaq Lawson that I had to see this year was him be able to put together 2 moves, go into a pass plan, with a game plan. Yeah. And he can't do it. And Jerry Hughes is the best guy to help him get there. And you saw Eddie Yarbrough doing it. So why isn't Shaq Lawson picking these things up? So the lack of seeing Shaq on there, do you think that's concerning?
I don't know. Just because they are short, there's only so much time that they can really get in there. I think the other thing too, and maybe not so much Shaq Lawson, but the absence of Trent Murphy on the field has probably it's changed the plans of this season so far, because he was a big part of their plans. Yeah. He needs to get healthy. There's just no doubt about it. So whatever's going on, whether it's this groin or a nagging knee thing, but it sounds to me like it's strictly the groin and his knee injury. Hopefully he's over with at this point, but sort of talking about like he did last year. I mean, he got injured in the first preseason game in a contract year where he was having a great training camp. If injuries are going to continue to be sort of his bugaboo, it's going to be too bad, because he does have a ton of talent, and the Bills really need what he brings. And that's just like that pass rushing persona, that guy that's sort of, you mentioned it, who has a game plan when he's up there and he's not just riffing every time. Because you could tell the good pass rushers in the league, they know what they're going to do before they do it, and it's executed, and you can see that there's a plan, and with Lawson, there just hasn't been, and that's been his biggest downfall this far.
And that plan isn't always just play by play, right? That plan is executed throughout multiple series a game. Like you start getting a guy leaning in one way and then you hit him with something else. Shaq just doesn't, it's not there for him. I don't know if it's going to click at any point, but
I hope so. Yeah, because they need, even if it's just for depth purposes, they need legitimate players at the defensive end position. They just do.
Yeah. And I love the idea of Shaq as the rotational guy behind Murphy. And I have been a little bit worried about Murphy. You keep hearing from the reporters that are at practice that he's not playing. He's in the no contact, but he is in full pads. He is limited. This episode actually made me feel a little bit better about where maybe he is and how the coaches view him, and that they think he's going to be ready when he is ready. Mentally, he's doing the mental reps. He's in the classroom. He's engaged with the players. That matters to me, because defensive line is all about communication.
Yep.
Especially with these new guys that haven't played with any of these other guys before. They got to be able to communicate with what they're seeing with the linebackers. And so that made me feel a little bit better about Murphy. We still got 2.5 weeks before the season opener.
Yeah,
if he can get right.
He doesn't need to be out there for the next 2 weeks. He just needs to be available come week 1, week 2. And obviously, as we get into our discussion about Josh Allen, everyone talked about how difficult these first 3 or 4 games are. And certainly everyone is dealing with injuries around the league and suspensions. But it seems like every day the schedule at Los Angeles looks like they might be without their best corner. They already lost Verrett. So it's like other teams are dealing with the same things the Bills are. But at what point, do you start to question, can this guy be available for us? Because that's a big thing with McDermott is availability. It's why Cordy Glenn's gone.
Oh, yeah. EJ Gaines, too.
Yep. And look at him. EJ Gaines just gets injured in Browns camp. He may not even make it to week 1. So.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I do think after watching that, I have this feeling, it's just a gut feeling. It's not based on anything, that I think he's going to be good to go. And it makes me feel happy that Eddie Yarbrough is still progressing in his role. So I think that makes me feel a bit better. If we can just have Shaq as a rotational guy, that's fine. You said we were going to talk about Josh Allen. I didn't know that going in. Not feel like that's really all we talk about on this show lately. But
good news. Eats blue cheese in that ranch on his
What's
way.
That?
I think it was probably a publicity stunt, but because he really went out of his way to let people know that he ate blue cheese in that ranch. But he's good in our book, right? I mean, no ranch guy.
I think he passed the test locally. He's not going to get killed right now. It's kind of weird that they always mention. There was a bit before the game last week of like, do you know this about Josh Allen? And it was like 2 or 3 people are like, he loves eating wings.
Yeah.
Like, okay, guys, we get it. Right. Like, that's great.
It's like he hates New York style pizza. Don't worry.
Like, okay, cool. Go out there and sling the ball. So he did sling the ball. He played pretty well in that Browns game. We haven't really got to talk since then. I thought even without McCarron getting hurt, I felt bad that he got hurt. Glad it's not broken. Without McCarron getting hurt, I thought Josh Allen did enough to earn this time with the starters anyway, all week long. As soon as he went out, I didn't care what Nathan Peterman did. I thought Josh Allen has earned all his steps up to this spot. And sure enough, he got it. He's the man this week, announced early, going through the whole process of the starter. What was your takeaway from his last game, and kind of just thoughts on being named the starter?
So everything that you heard all week, and what I loved is talk and the things that Lorenzo Alexander was saying after the game, and things that Shaq Lawson and some of the veterans on the team were saying about Josh Allen, about like him starting to gain their trust. They all have he's earned their respect throughout training camp. And I think just through little stuff that we don't see, like his preparation. But when he goes into the huddle, Lorenzo Alexander saying that really kind of made me pause, because if he's noticing that the team all of a sudden they sort of take a step up in execution, which they did. I mean, he had 3 for 3 scoring drives after the offense literally looked like what everybody thought they were going to look like all year. Yeah. Right? Like Josh Allen,
like Saints game Tyrod.
Josh Allen's the only hope this offense has to be better than terrible. You know what I'm saying? And because the other two guys, listen, Nate Peterman looked great in that first game. Is that like, can he repeat that week after week? I'm not sure. And I never thought, just really at all at any point, that AJ McCarron was going to take this over and be like a guy that could start 16 games and then go get paid somewhere else after, Josh Allen's ready to take over. Like that never really crossed my mind. He looked just about as what I was sort of expecting it to look, except it was a little bit worse. Like that first team offense looked just god awful, and he couldn't get out of the way of any rushers. So what you saw is then Josh Allen comes in and he's able to sort of move away from the rush and move the chains and take what the defense gave him. 15 plays, 80 yards on that one drive. Like, that was beautiful. And then he gets the 2-minute drill. And I just love that he's getting all these different situations. They were showing on Baldy's breakdowns, which I was watching before we got on. And he was showing a Greg Williams blitz where they basically dumped everybody on the right side and they overload the left side. And he noticed it almost right away, moved out of the pocket, threw it on the run, completed to Corey Coleman. Mm-hmm. And like, that's the stuff that you thought that it was going to take him a while, to be able to recognize, hey, I'm getting an overload blitz to one side. I need to move away. I need to reset myself and get myself to the other side of the field. And we all knew that he was capable of moving it and throwing on the run. Like, I was on 590 The Fan earlier, Sportsnet in Toronto, and they were asking me the same things about, like, at this point, did you think that he was going to be as good as he is in the pocket, knowing that really he was a guy that was going to be like Tyrod, that was really maybe better suited playing outside of like the scope of the offense. But his footwork and everything inside the pocket has been much to many, including our friend Rob Quinn's surprise.
Yeah, and with a bad offensive line. And we've talked about that here, that I think that is what gives him the edge, is if the offensive line is as bad as we all think, you want a guy that has the ability to not only move around in the pocket, move and extend plays. I thought, obviously, the touchdown was fantastic. He made a couple really nice runs, things like that. I thought it was the throws, like the one to Andre Holmes on that out route, that have a little bit of timing. And it's like the guy, unlike Tyrod, like, he knew what was coming, and it wasn't even a full 3-step drop. It was like a 2-step drop, and the ball was out because of his size, because of his ability to stand tall in the pocket. Yeah, and that was something when we were talking about the quarterback position this summer. We were wondering, is he going to be able to hit guys with anticipation? Is he going to be able to make those throws? And so far, I think in the 3 quarters that he's played, he's shown that he can. I don't know if he'll be able to do it consistently throughout with teams game planning against him. I think we're going to start to see a little bit of that this week. So we've gotten to this point with him. He's got the starting job going into the week. I don't think anything he can do throughout practice, even if he has a bad week of practice, is going to change that. What do Gordon Arbor from the Slack channel, which you have to be a premium member, and you can be in the Slack channel. It's actually going right now. My phone's lighting up. If Gordon asks, what does Allen have to do this Sunday against the Bengals to win the starting job for week 1?
I think if he just continues to build on what we saw last week, if he remains patient and sort of makes those throws, the ones to the tight end over the middle, and like you mentioned, the one to Andre Holmes, which I thought was an important step for him, because he talked about it all offseason, and he used sort of the golfing analogy, like being able to use a 7-iron instead of always using my driver, and like on that throw, that wasn't a laser beam. Like, he took some off and he put a nice arc on it and he put it out, let his receiver 2 steps inbounds, boom. Like, that's an NFL throw. Mm-hmm. It may not seem like a lot to people, it's a 7-yard out pass, a 3-step drop, pretty simple, right? But those are some of the harder throws to make on time and on target, and especially because you had a high-low scenario there. You had a guy, and he made the right read past the first down mark and threw an accurate ball. And like you mentioned, those were some of the stuff we were worried about, but he hasn't shown that. I guess for me, what it ultimately has to be for him if he's going to win it is just continue taking the steps we see the last two games. Can he lead them on multiple scoring drives, whether it's field goals or touchdowns? Can they, or can he, I should say, can he hit one of those deep balls like that? That's really what I'm going to be most excited about can he connect with Corey Coleman on a deep 50, 60-yard pass? Can he connect with Kelvin Benjamin, deep one over the middle, a back shoulder throw? If he can flash some of the stuff that he might be able, the tools, I think he could. Listen, the job is going to be won or lost this week, and we haven't really had this scenario play out. We've all had to sort of remain patient on this, but this is the week that it's either won or lost, which is exciting if you're a Bills fan, and also you get to see Andy Dalton.
That's true. Everybody loves
Bills
Andy
fans'
Dalton.
favorite.
Yeah, we love him. The mayor.
The mayor of Buffalo. Keys of the city.
It's going to be a long week hearing that story over and over again. But this Bengals defense is no slouch, especially the front seven. They're very good. We saw it last year.
This is what we talked about last week, though, right? Like I said, I really need to see him against a competent defense, a competent first-team defense, and you're getting a very top 15 unit here. Like this isn't a bottom half of the unit. You're not playing, I don't know, the Colts, like you're playing against a defense that's very competent, that plays in a good division, a very competitive division. So I don't think you could have picked a better opponent to try to give yourself a litmus test for, like you didn't want him going out there against the Jaguars first team defense and trying to evaluate that, what you would take away with that. So I think it's sort of the best case scenario, and Sean McDermott played it. And it's funny, I'm with my boys on Trainwreck Sports on their podcast, and they've got this conspiracy theory that this was the plan all along, is that this week, that by week 3, he was going to be inserted as the starter, and that was going to be the story. And I don't necessarily think that was the plan. I just think it worked out that way, that by week 3, he had done enough to earn a start. I don't think that he was penciled in, even if Sean McDermott would tell us anyways. But I don't think that he was penciled in at any point to start week 3. I think that the rotation was going to be Peterman, McCarron, and then whoever of those two won the job, with the idea that this is just going to be a season that we let Allen grow when he's ready. But he's showing that he's ready now, and it's exciting for me, and I know it has to be exciting for a lot of people.
Absolutely. That conversation has been definitely going on in the Slack channel. There's been mixed reviews of who thinks what about McDermott. Here's what I'll say. I agree with you. I don't think that McDermott had this entirely pre-planned. I think that he is such a planner that he had every situation planned out, right? And I do think he gave Allen some benchmarks to achieve, and Allen went ahead and probably surpassed those benchmarks all throughout this process. So while maybe at some point he envisioned every scenario, I don't know that he predicted this as the quarters. You know what I mean? I don't think.
Right.
I think sometimes
it would be difficult too.
Yeah, I think sometimes we give Sean McDermott a little bit too much of the Messiah credit of some of the things that he's able to do. I might get killed for that.
Put some respect on your lips, boy.
I know I might get killed on that for Twitter. I love Sean McDermott. I don't want to anybody to come at me on Twitter.
You're like Matty Wren, where wait, hold on. You keep going, and I'll bring up the tweet.
Okay.
Because he mentioned that he really enjoys interacting with objective fans, and I thought that was the funniest thing I have ever seen.
Yeah, there's not that many of that. But anyway, I don't know that it was totally a pre-planned process. So here's one thing that I want to see, and I want to get your take on this because I think it'll kill fans to see it. But something that I want to see Allen go through, because we really haven't seen it yet this preseason, is I would actually, as weird as it sounds, I would love to see him go out there and either have a terrible series or throw an interception or some type of bad negative play, and to see how he responds against the good defense, because it's going to happen in the season. It's probably going to happen early, and that's what everyone's worried about. I don't want to see how he does when things are clicking and going well. I want to see his response to an NFL defense when he feels a little bit of pressure, and the pressure that starting job's hanging on his back, and he knows he's made a mistake. Is he going to come out there and start forcing things? Is he going to play tentative? I want to see what Josh Allen does beyond making a mistake.
It was, by the way, side note, it was troop humping, clap happy coach. And anyways, but yeah, you're totally right. Like, what happens when he gets sacked and there's a sack fumble? How does he respond the next series out? What happens if he throws one of his bullets and it goes off the receiver's hands and into the hands of the defender? A pick six, God forbid something like that happens. At the same time, I think a lot of folks want to see him play a perfect game and see him be what we saw him in, 4 series last week. I do need to see, I think the coaching staff needs to see a mistake. As much as that we'd like to see him go out there and play a perfect game and go, 13 of 17 for 180 yards and 2 scores. What might be more productive is, 10 of 22 for 100 yards, a TD and a pick, and a couple of sacks. Is that going to be enough to say, well, he's won the job because of that? I don't know, but maybe it gives them enough to say, hey, we know that he's going to be capable of bouncing back after a bad series or a bad play, enough where we know he can go out there and be the Elway type, where, if he goes out there and goes 0-8, that he has the ability to bounce back and maybe win 8-1, and win 8 to end the season. Now, I know I'm not calling him John Elway or anything. I'm not the one guy on Twitter who keeps telling me he's John Elway, but listen, and the thing is we haven't seen him against first team defense. This is finally a real test. And I'm just happy that they're giving him a week to fully prepare for it. They're going to game plan this game. They're going to treat this like a game week. And I think there's a lot of advantage to that.
Yeah, there is. And I think it's going to be interesting too on the other side of the ball. And I can't wait for Eric's take on it, because I think the Bengals are also going to game plan. I think this is dress rehearsal for everyone in the league. How are teams going to game plan against Josh Allen? I think that's very important. I think Dable's going to get a lot out of being able to see that, how our NFL team's going to go
to be
against
honest with you, I'm excited to see Dable call like a game plan like he did for Nathan Peterman for Josh Allen, with all of the scheme aspect to it. Because once you get with the third teamers, and the second team, you really start to reel back the complex scheme, just so that you can get guys out there and who can execute at a fairly decently high level. You know what I mean? But I think they're going to be going out there with the idea that we're going to run some stuff we're going to see on Sundays during the regular season, and you're going to see some RPOs. You're going to see some stuff like that, and that's what I'm going to be excited to see.
Yeah, I can't wait. We've talked about Allen a ton. I don't know that there's a whole lot more we can talk about. I think for fans, we're overanalyzing. I think at the end of the day, it's just a really exciting time right now. That future is there. It's visible. Can he grab it? I think it's his to grab. And we'll find out Sunday what happens. I think we could talk about it till we're blue in the face, but I think we just got to wait, see how the chips fall, and then kind of go from there. What else about this Bengals game outside of the quarterback position are you looking for? Roster position guys battling for those spots, because this is where it's going to be made. I don't take much out of the 4th game outside of some special teams roles, maybe. This is where guys are really going to earn those final 53 spots if they're staying on the team at all. What positions are you really hyper-focusing on going into this real dress rehearsal game?
I think we're good with Marcus Murphy. I think we know where we got him. I think he's your number 3 running back. I'm looking at the wide receiver position, specifically 3 guys. I'd like to see Corey Coleman get more than a couple plays that he feels comfortable with. I'd like to see him out there with the ones in the slot. I'd like to see Zay Jones get a little bit more as well. But I'm sort of looking at the battle between 2 guys I think that are battling for the final wide receiver spot, and I think that's Brandon Riley and Rod Streeter. Rod Streeter has done enough and has earned a spot, but can Brandon Riley sort of regain some of the momentum that he had last year going into this offseason, that everyone was sort of talking about him being maybe this is the year that he makes the roster, or can Rod Streeter hold him off? And I think a lot of that 6th wide receiver spot can be made in this game this week. And Streeter's shown a really nice rapport with Josh Allen. Yeah. And I'll be interested to sort of see if he gets in there with the ones at times, if Josh continues to look his way. It'll be interesting though. Like that, I'm looking at those 3 guys, Streeter, Coleman, and Brandon Riley, and obviously the tight end position between Kaiir Lee and Nick O'Leary. Nick O'Leary put himself back on the map last week with that performance in the 3rd and 4th quarter with Nathan Peterman. So does he earn some more second team reps now?
Well, he played pretty well too, though.
He did. Yeah, they both did. And I think obviously Jason Kroom has been sort of the talk of camp. I think at this point that Kroom is a lock, and this is really going to be between Kaiir Lee and Nick O'Leary for that last tight end spot on the roster. And I think we both know, that Nick O'Leary is not giving him a ton on special teams. He did play special teams last year, but I think if Kerry Lee has one thing over him, it's the athleticism. Nick O'Leary is sort of plays like he's older, doesn't he? He plays like an old man, kind of, like he's been in the league for 10, 15 years.
Yeah, even that touchdown that he got, which padded those stats last week. One, I didn't love the throw. Eric and I went back a little bit on that. Eric said, no, it was a fine throw. I said, man, against a starting defense, that doesn't turn into a touchdown. There's no way that he busts through some starting safety in this league. I think he's on that cusp of this guy can produce in the NFL. I think he's just another guy. At the end of the day, I think that's where he is. To the point about receivers you made here real quick, I forget the guy's name already in the chat room is going Thick Dill Pickle is his name. Do you think McLeod will make the team? And as you were talking, you said the battle for the last spot is Riley and Streeter. Do you have McLeod above that 6th spot, or is McLeod on your out?
So it's tough.
Don't do it to me, man.
Because I think Marcus Murphy has taken over as the kick returner, the primary kick returner, that Ray McLeod's probably going to go to the practice squad unless they feel that they can't get him through waivers, which could totally be
I don't think they can, yeah.
I think that they could probably get him through waivers because you got to remember, each team is going to really keep 5 or 6 guys. And if the Bills can't seem to find a spot for him, maybe a team like the Patriots try to steal Ray. If they feel worried about that, then they'll keep him. But I think Andre Holmes is a lock. I didn't necessarily think that a week ago, but I think he's a lock. So if you've got Kelvin, Zay, Curley, Andre Holmes, and Streeter, then maybe you do have room for Ray as a 6th receiver. It's really going to come down to, I just didn't necessarily think Andre Holmes was a lock to make the roster. But I do right now. I think that he's basically as much of a lock as a guy like Jeremy Curley right now. Because he just brings that veteran presence and he's a red zone threat. And from what I saw in practice, they have packages where they are putting out Benjamin, Holmes, Logan Thomas as your through wide receivers. That's a big set. Like they're going to try to create mismatches. If they don't have the speed, they're going to try to, and imagine now, if you have those 3 with Corey Coleman on the field and what you have is a guy that can burn and then 3 guys that are all creating mismatches at each of their individual matchups. Right.
I just think of a lot of people said as soon as Corey Coleman came, that put McLeod on the outs because of the similarities of those 2 players. But what I saw last week was a few.
I disagree on the similarity because McLeod isn't fast. McLeod is quick.
He's quick,
and he's great
with the ball in space.
Yes, he's like a running back. Yeah. And they still don't really have a true jet sweep guy. And I think that is Ray McLeod. Like Ray McLeod's the one guy that can give you that, and they run it, so they're going to use that. And I think Ray maybe has a spot there.
Well, and say he does have some similarities. We saw last week some mirror concept stuff, and you can't always run mirror concepts with just like 5 totally different type of guys, right? You want Andre Holmes and Kelvin Benjamin running similar routes. So I don't know. I think we could talk about wide receivers for a long time. I think Ray is in that Riley and Streeter battle as well. And I want to point out, I think it's the depth of that wide receiver room isn't as bad maybe as we thought. I'm not saying it's good.
No, but I agree. It's not as bad as the outside people have been saying it is, I agree with that 100%.
Now, I want to look at, there's the 2 sides I want to look at here, and we're going to wrap up here pretty quick, but the defensive backs, we saw Levi Wallace getting some more reps. He made a nice play on the ball. There's going to be a position there that it's not deep. So there's somebody's going to pick that 4th cornerback spot, and he might be in play there. That, and then who behind Tremaine Edmonds, Milano, and Humber? I think you got to keep Humber. Is Dion Lacey a guy?
I like Lacey's game. I think they like Lacey's game too, and he's been working. And I think Keenan Robinson's another game that you watch. But the problem is if they're keeping 4 tight ends, keeping 6 receivers, keeping 3 or 4 running backs, is it going to be 4? Because if you're keeping Tywan Jones too, then you need
Tywan. He's a gunner.
And listen, John from Rochester, don't tell him that, okay? Because John from Rochester calls in on my show on every Saturday and every pregame, and he says, "Hey, I'll tell you what, that Tywan Jones, he sticks out to me." So
I just got new. John from Rochester. That's my burner phone number. That's been me calling in this whole time now.
Shout out from Rochester, my man.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be an interesting numbers game. I would like to see a couple more linebackers kept. I think Milano and Edmonds are going to struggle. I think Humber has his issues. I'd like to see Lacey. I'd almost even like to see Vallejo get a shot. I know he's not a great actual linebacker, but I think he can fill that special teams role that you want from some other guys. And there is no middle linebacker really behind Edmonds.
That's Vallejo. I mean, Vallejo is your Mike, your second Mike. So it's Julian Stanford. And I think even though he sort of gets beat in the pass game a lot, that he could be a goal line guy. I think at the end of the day, they're going to keep 6. And I think Stanford, it's going to be between Humber and Vallejo. That's in my opinion, because I think Deion Lacey's a lock because he's a great special teamer. He can rush the passer. He's a good blitz back. So I think those 5 right there are your 5 linebackers. And it really kind of comes down to Keenan Robinson or Tanner Vallejo or Humber. It's going to be one of those 3. And I would if I'm putting my money on somebody, I'd say Vallejo because they drafted him,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And this is the game to watch to find those positions that are going to shake out. Whoever can step up, make some plays. I think that's where it's going to be. Obviously, somebody said we don't have time to really get into it too deep. The slot cornerback position, I think that's already shaken itself out a little bit. I think Taron Johnson's taken that over from Gaines. So I think that is just what it's going to be going into the season. Gaines might even not make the roster due to that. But we'll have time to get into that in another episode.
I think they have to keep Gaines. Like they just don't have a lot of depth. They just don't have depth at corner. Like, and if somebody goes down, at least you feel like Gaines could go to the outside potentially and give you some time on the outside. Listen, I think that they got to hope that somebody
shakes off another roster,
right? A young guy or a veteran. Like I said, I was surprised they didn't immediately go after Orlando Scandrick when he became available because although he's not really giving you the same level of play that he's had the last few years from the outside, he's a good slot corner. And maybe that would give Taron Johnson the necessary time to fully step in. But he looked pretty good last week against the Browns, other than taking that cheap shot from that piece of shit, Jarvis Landry. That absolute piece of shit. And listen, like, I don't necessarily – it's hard for me to hate guys. I fucking hate Jarvis Landry. There is nothing redeemable about his game. And, like, I know I mess around with JJ Zachariason, who's a big fantasy guy on Twitter, and he was messing around. Well, I mean, Kelvin Benjamin's best receiver. Of course you would take Jarvis Landry. I wouldn't take Jarvis Landry. I would be upset with my front office if they decided to go out and pay Jarvis Landry. I don't like him. I don't like the way he plays. I don't like the way he acts on the field. Oh man, that hit is, and here's the thing. You're going to be fining guys. You're going to be calling 15-yard penalties on guys trying to sack the quarterback, but you're not going to call a penalty on a guy who's getting a 15-yard head start, running full speed at a guy who's standing still. That needs to be the kind of play they take out of the league, not a defensive end who is coming in on a defenseless quarterback and tackling him. Like, if they're going to do that, they need to be consistent. They need to figure out what's important to them, the NFL. That's a whole other thing. We could talk about
the league. You're never going to get that out of this league.
That, maybe that's a good wake-up call for Taron Johnson. Maybe he needed a nice shot to the chin to get him into the game. But yeah, no, like he's going to end up, I think, being the starter with Phillip Gaines and Lafayette Pitts probably is your other 2. We'll see what happens with Phillip Gaines, but there's probably going to be 5 corners on the roster would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm down for it, man. So we got a bunch of new content. You heard me talking about it at the beginning of the show up at cover1.net. Fernando, who is in the chat right now, had a nice piece on his 53-man roster.
Fernando's the man.
Yeah, I love the content that he puts out. I typically am on board with the stuff that he's saying. So I'm always sharing that. And I thought he did a great job with the 53-man roster prediction, stuff that we've been talking about here. Yep. Rob Quinn had a really nice article today. He got killed a little bit over the weekend on the Josh Allen stuff. So he put out a great piece of like, guys, this is just, it is what it is when you are doing analysis of these players. You're going to be wrong. You're going to say things. I agree with him. I'd be happy to be wrong. I was also very adamant about not wanting Josh Allen, as were you, anyone that watched it.
Like what I liked about what like Rob said is looking at guys and trying to find traits instead of just trying to find negatives and saying why someone can't. Instead, trying to find reasons maybe why you can. And like for me, my whole thing was, and I'm not the one that I'm going to say here and say that I was the only person that said Josh Allen was good, because I wrote an article that literally said, don't draft Josh Allen. Like, I thought that would have been a mistake. But the second that it happened, I had my 5 minutes where I was at the bar, and I was going to be on the radio after the first round was over, after Murph and Tasker got off. That was me. And I was sitting at the bar with Gates, and Gates is like, I'm literally going to quit my job, dude. And I'm like, listen, man, like, let's get this out now. Let's use this 5 minutes to say, damn it, we really didn't want this guy. Josh Rosen's on the board, whatever. But now let's get over that, and let's start figuring out why it is that Brandon Beane put his reputation on the line to draft this guy. Maybe he's seeing something. Maybe we need to give this guy a chance. And that's just, objective fans are fans that are going to allow this guy to at least have a chance to win you over. And other people are just going to say, no matter what, and even Benjamin Albright's coming around a little bit on it. A lot of people are. So, he needs to continue doing what he's doing. But I love the fact that he continues to say, none of that stuff bothers him. None of that stuff gets to him. And you could tell it really doesn't.
It doesn't bother Rob either. And so check out that article that Rob put. Tons of great content up at Cover One, man. These guys are working around the clock. I have the easy job. I just come on here and talk with Nate for an hour a week. That's easy. The other guys that are busting it out, writing all a bunch of content, that's the hard stuff. That's the stuff that you guys come to cover1.net and you love it. So get over there. Nate, what do you got going on this week, man? What's the rest of your week looking like here?
So, obviously with my radio schedule this weekend, I'm on all weekend. I'm on 11 to 2 on GR, my normal sports talk Saturday. By the way, I've got a killer lineup of guests for that. So if you're mowing the lawn on Saturday, turn me on. I got some really good guests coming on Saturday. Then I've got the pregame, 12 to 2, halftime, and then postgame immediately after the game. My plan is that Monday or Tuesday to come out with my reaction piece on the game about Josh Allen. And whether or not I think he did enough to start. So I would probably suspect that comes out Monday or Tuesday.
I do want to just say, because somebody said, wait, Nate worked with the dude that quit over Allen. I just want to say I have a tweet somewhere buried in a screenshot of you,
I
Nate.
said I was going to jump off a bridge, but there was water on the bottom of the bridge, and I already jumped off.
You also told me in an exchange that
I was going to eat shit.
You were going to, no, not eat it. You said you were going to shit yourself.
Listen,
if they picked
people took that out of context. People took that into context. I said I was going to shit myself if the Jets. It was before that. It wasn't about the Bills pick. It was about the Jets.
I feel like you're backtracking now, man. I'm gonna have to find the tweet because if you said it to me, you owe me one, and I'm gonna videotape it. And we're gonna get your shit in yourself. Because Ryan's a man of his word.
Ryan is a man of the word, and he did it smart. He became famous over it. He Deadspin did an article on him. Like he got the full. He got the full experience after he quit. So.
Absolutely. So as for the rest of us here at Cover One Buffalo, we're going to have our post-game show immediately after the game as well. So you can tune in here if you don't have access to listen to Nate or you just you're sick of hearing Nate, come on over here and listen to us. We got you covered. The nice thing about our thing too is you can find it on YouTube after you listen to the post-game show with Nate. Doesn't matter. We're going to be here. We'll be on the cover1.net site. If you want, go over to whatever mobile app that you get your apps from, download the Cover One app. You'll get notified at anytime any of these articles that we're talking about drop, anytime our podcast goes up, you'll get those notifications direct to your phone. So you don't have to do anything. We come to you. We make it that easy.
Which is great.
To consume the content. The content's only ramping up, guys. As the Bills ramp up, we ramp up with them. This content's going to be dropping like fire all the time, all these takes. So we're going to wrap it up here. We know it's getting late. It's school night. We all got to get to bed. So we appreciate you guys coming out, joining us. Don't forget to head over to cover1.net. Get that $10 premium membership now because it's gone in like another week and a half. Yep. That deal's gone. You're not going to get it again. You're going to be kicking yourself. So get over there and get it. You can find Nate. What are you, Nate? At Nate Geary WGR.
Damn, come on, act like you don't know it.
I know. I look him up every day. He's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. He's the celebrity of the group here, man. You're the big attraction to the show. So of course I know.
If nothing else, I've got the hair for it. So.
Somebody said it in the chat. I didn't want to tell you, but Somebody did say you had nice hair. Anyway, you can find me at Aaron Quinn 716, and obviously you can find Cover One on all your social media platforms. Just search Cover One, you'll find us. Great content coming for you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. We cannot do it without you guys. Enjoy the game this weekend. Don't overreact over anything, and just sit back and enjoy it with a beer.
Come on,
have a good one, guys.